let's talk about momentum, and I'm talking high momentum in regards to intraday trading, whether you're trading your own account or a prop account, and kind of what are some characteristics that a person can capture with different types of indicators. And I've been, on this quest for a long time. And in my mind, I now have the best of the best. And I'm talking like 3 years. I've been playing with about 6 or 7 different tools to capture certain type of moves of momentum. And that's what we're doing. We're basically pattern recognition or pattern entrapment operators. We're trying to entrap certain patterns, like an indicator showing us a shift in momentum from one flip to another. That's one type of pattern. Like with the iGrid tools, we're trying to capture transition points in momentum to take advantage of those for intraday trades or longer term trades. And sometimes the market gives us really good, defined, crisp shifts of momentum, and sometimes it doesn't. So the iGrid, I can track shifts of momentum like really good, and it has a lot of adjustability. So I can work with that indicator on many different instruments, on on about any instrument I can track, and a wide range of time frames. But then when I really want to go down to when the market just rips and it gets really linear in nature, what are some ways I can see that through an indicator that I could have a talk out trade activity through automation? So here's some examples of what I came up with and something I've been working on for several months now to kind of get it where I really love the mechanism that can entrap the pattern. And once that mechanism is where I like it and it's doing what I want to, what I originally intended, then I can take that and have the indicator have outputs or make a strategy or whatever to then work the trade management around entrapping the pattern that I'm trying to capture. So there's two things to watch for when the market gets in high momentum with what I call this tilt trader tool. And I've shown it before, and I made massive advancements with it in the past couple, probably about 8 weeks, where I'm not doing anything to the indicator anymore. I've now been moving into what type of automation would be around taking advantage of these type of setups. So there's a couple things. Number one is angle of tilt. How much angle am I tilting up or tilting down? So what is my angle of ascension, or what is my angle of descension or descent, or whatever you want to call it? My upward tilt angle, downward tilt angle. So and I guess that's actually a very important point to benchmark. Like I have to have a certain amount of sudden up tilt in price or a certain amount of sudden down tilt in price so that a benchmark level of upward tilt and there's different ways. So we were measuring the tilt one way, then we had a breakthrough on a newer way that's more efficient to measure how much tilted are we up or down, so that can be an output so we can see through some optimization work. Okay, if my tilt is this much or below, don't touch any longs. And then if my tilt is now this much, and then having that is a very specific and defined output, and the optimization says, wow, if I'm at that amount of tilt or greater upward tilt, now I can trigger a long trade. So that's a big thing, that tilt. Another thing too that I added to the mix that increased the verification of, okay, yeah, I got the right tilt, but is the momentum strong or is it really strong? Like, is it ripping? How narrow the gap is between the bands. So upward or downward tilt. Number two, a collapsing of the space between the channel. This is not a regular linear regression. These vertical lines are attached with anchor points, and I can adjust where the anchor points are to a set of unique adaptive price bands. Not linear regression, but adaptive price bands. And I've built tons of bands that don't recalculate or repaint. So I know how to build adaptive price bands. So taking a line and anchoring it at two points of contact on the upper and lower side is part of the mechanism. And then for uptrends, we found out, okay, wherever the top side is anchored, we can just have the bottom line run parallel to it, but when it flips, we'll do the opposite. That might confuse you, but so that's not like something you absolutely need to know, but that was another part of this process of working many months, finally getting some way to entrap the pattern I'm looking for. So let's watch a little bit as the market goes from what I would say is not in that targeted type of momentum that I want to get involved with. So let's say the upward tilt of the market met my criteria right about here. Then the objective would be, okay, I'm going to deploy a trade. I'll have some sort of fixed stop. Then as the market proves to me that it's continuing to move in my intended direction, I can have the stop, trailing, and so on. It's not hard to figure out then where my stop and target should be with a little bit of optimization work. And then the nice thing is I can then look at a wide range of time frames per instrument and get some that are like really capturing these bursts of movement. And the idea is to try to get in somewhere in the first, 33 to 37% of the move. So when I'm getting in, there's at least a little bit left or a lot left that I can get in and get my stop to break even plus, trail it, to then grab quick bites out of the market. And then as long as the market maintains a certain amount of price movement in that direction of momentum, that my tool that I've developed stays at a certain amount, in this case upward tilt, and maintains a certain amount of distance between the two lines, maintains that minimal distance, doesn't get super wide, then I'm willing to stay in the trade. If the channel lines get too wide, means I'm starting to go from momentum to oscillation, I can have the stop start moving faster. So, if it reverses, I lock in more profits. If it stays narrow, I can keep my stop maybe a little bit more passive. So it's an important measurement for getting into the trade. It's an important measurement to keep analyzing for staying in the trade. So that's it. Number one, what's the tilt angle of the tilt trader? And then what is the expansion distance? Or in this case, what is the collapsed? So the more collapsed the indicator gets on top of itself, the stronger the momentum is. Hey, I want to stay in that baby and give it some chance to run. I want my trail stop maybe to be a little bit more passive, and so on. So I can use all that to then figure out what kind of trade management works for that pattern that I've just entrapped. I've been looking at ways at catching these moves forever, and it's like now I finally found something, and I've been working with it in the background, like just really making sure this is the one, and it's set up and doing what I want, and it's like, okay, now I'm there. Okay, now I can move on to the trade management. And I have somebody that I've never worked with before, ever, working with me on this. Not just for, we have the rough draft in NT8. The idea was to put it in Quantower. I think Quantower might be better for entrapping these moves when they're really fast, and I want to do a lot of order flow activity into the move, or a lot of like multiple phases of in-trail management. In other words, I want to make sure wherever it runs, I don't have like order exceptions or problems moving. I don't want there to be reliability issues if I end up going on some really low time frames. that is not quite high frequency trading, but looking like it and getting pretty close to it, if that makes sense. So now that I've gone on and on, let's look at some of these movements so I can kind of explain the concept and what I've been working on. Okay, so this is pre-market period. This is coming up to about 6 in the morning, Chicago time, US Central time. Uh, I might find out that I can trade this round the clock. I know I can use it in FX. I already kind of use a version of this in FX with a certain type of bands when we get a certain tilt angle and narrowness, but I found this, I think, is much more effective than that for a quicker intraday activity, especially futures trading, and that, Trader 8, the indicator. Now watch that right there. See that? Did you see how that played out? We got a certain tilt angle, and then we got a certain amount of collapse. So that whole time period of the indicator being narrow, then as the market gets a momentum shift, the indicator widens out a bit. Then the indicator starts tilting, but it's still kind of wide. Then for a period of time, the indicator gets to a pretty significant downward tilt and narrows a bit. And the more the momentum picks up, just kind of watch what the channel does. You can visualize how that can be utilized for targeting. And I have this on a really fast playback. So, way faster, it's not like I'm running it at, typical market speed. And to tell you the truth, I don't even have this indicator optimized for this time frame. I just kind of threw it up to make the video. So I might be on a completely, not at all the best settings. Anchor bar, like am I on bars number 5 and 20? Or, so I can control the points. I control some other things about the speed and responsiveness of the underlying adaptive price bands that will all be part of an optimization to say, this is the best setting for movements on this particular chart and this particular time. I'm going to drop a little bit, and as it's all about the bands, and I can already tell these bands are not set enough time frame. I can just tell already. But I wanted you to see the visualization of what the horizontal channel lines do and how they could be utilized to look for tilt angle upward or downward to trigger into trades, the collapsing of the distance between the two. So I'm kind of, I'm done getting the indicator where I needed to get it on 2 platforms. Now it's like, okay, let's build a working model with it in live mode, trading some eval accounts, manage to use. Then when I've kind of like feel very confident with it, then it's like now it's ready to go. It can be deployed, and I can start moving on other platforms like for my FX trade, whatever other platforms I could possibly use this. Definitely with the mindset of using it for intraday trading. So I just kind of wanted to go over, there's so many ways that you can look at for entrapping movements of momentum. And real quick, this is kind of at 1 speed. So let me make this indicator more responsive, and we'll watch a little bit of this day play out with it set to a little bit more responsive of a level. Wrap up, set this in a bit more responsive of a time. This is pre-market. I'll speed it up just to show you, in the end, the optimization is going to tell us what deviation of width to have set as the starting point, what look back period and anchor points. And then in the end, per instrument and time frame, well, I'll have settings where I can capture these type of moves and get in and grab a piece and get out. And then when I get another move, get in, grab a piece and get out, and so on. So hopefully that just kind of let you know that the process I go, I build stuff and what I'm talking about with the tool, capturing patterns. Have a good day, weekend.